Good morning. A friend of mine a number of years ago said that Jesus did not come to establish a new religion, nor did he come to make one greater than it already was. You see, the point is that religion is not God's focus, and yet religion seems to be what you and I and mankind in general focus on. It's about what we do, it's about sacrifices, it's about all kinds of things, keeping rules. And yet Jesus didn't come for that reason. In fact, Jesus said that he came to set the captives free. What does that look like? What does that even equate to? Well, one of the things that I've realized is that we're prisoners sometimes. We're prisoners by our despair. We're prisoners by our discouragement, by our depression, anxiety, worry, fear, anxiety. All of those things and more keep us prisoners and keep us locked up into our stuff. And I realize that it's not always easy to break through, but what Jesus said was that I came to set you free. And it was for freedom that Christ died. And so I want to challenge us today to think about that, to think about, well, what is it that Jesus came for? And perhaps even yourself doing your own study into that subject. What was it that Jesus came for, and what am I allowing myself to experience, or am I keeping myself a prisoner of my own making? I realize that one of the problems we get into sometimes is that we allow things into our heads to take up space. And when that happens, we tend to feed it. And what we feed will grow. And what will grow will eventually overtake us and overpower us. It's not always easy to not do that. Sometimes it seems like it comes natural to us, for us to, well, just entertain things that are unhealthy for us. Sometimes we forget that God has given us sight into the spiritual things of Him. And yet we struggle with the blindness of the spiritual side of life. We struggle with all of the things that entice us and draw us away from the things that God has called us to be. Because we can't see it, we don't believe it. But that doesn't mean that the promises of God are not there. It just means that we've allowed things to come in and cloud our vision. Maybe it's that depression. Maybe it is that anxiety. Maybe it's one of those things that I mentioned before. The point is that we need to walk in what God has given us. I looked at a picture the other day, and it was an interesting picture because, well, it was a picture of people that were doing some great good in an area of feeding the homeless and taking care of the needs of those that were destitute. But as I was looking at their posture, I thought, these people don't look happy. Now, I'm not saying they weren't, but I'm saying that the way they carried themselves, the way they appeared in the picture, they seemed like the depressed that they were trying to help. And the problem is that we can be doing the good things on the outside of our lives while the inside we're struggling. We're struggling with freedom. We're struggling with joy. We're struggling with happiness. Why? Because we've allowed ourselves to be a prisoner. We've allowed ourselves to be the prisoner of our phobias, our fears, our insecurities. We allow ourselves to be a prisoner of what we think creates our identity, our addictions, our idiosyncrasies, as I like to call them. We give in to those things, not realizing that we've allowed ourselves to be imprisoned by the very things that God wants to set us free from. Why do we do that? What's going on in our lives that we feel that we need to subject ourselves to the prison that those things bring us into? Sometimes the prison is our failures, the past failures, the hurts. We rehearse those things and we tell ourselves why we can't move forward. I've done it. I remember once saying to someone that if you understood what I'd gone through in my life, you'd understand why I'm where I'm at. I was angry. I was in a bad place, and I was trying to drown out my sorrows with things that weren't healthy. Well, simply, I was a prisoner. I was a prisoner of my anger and my fear. I was a prisoner of my bitterness. I was a prisoner of my mind, of my past, of my hurts, my disappointments. And the problem is that God wants to set us free. And I can tell you personally that God has done that. Am I where I want to be in freedom? No. You know why? Because I sometimes revert back to the prison that I created for myself. The interesting part is the door now is open, but I walk back into that prison, sit down like it's a home, because it's comfortable. It's what I know. It's what I've grown accustomed to. But the door is open. And you see, the door is open for you, and it is also open for me. Why? Because Jesus came to set the captives free. And so regardless of where you are right now, regardless of where I am right now, the door to that prison has been opened. That door to that prison has been opened so that I can walk out. I no longer have to stay within the confines of that issue. The other thing that Jesus came for was to heal the brokenhearted. Well, how are we brokenhearted? Divorce, abandonment, abuse, a broken spirit. Again, Jesus came to heal that. But we have to avail ourselves of that. We have to open the door to that. We have to bring him into that. I often believe that one of the things that we don't do is bring Jesus back into that place of that hurt. He was there, but we need to experience his healing. I know in my own life, I asked Jesus once, where were you when things were going on in my life as a child? Where were you? And he showed me. And that vision that I had of those times where he was grieving over what had happened and shared with me that why things happened that way. And I understood it. And I allowed him to give me freedom from those past hurts. The point is that what Jesus came for, again, was not to establish a religion or something else for us to do, but simply to enter into a relationship with he and his Father, one that will give us hope, give us a purpose. You see, the things that God has planned for us, they're for us and our taking. The choice is yours and mine as to whether or not I'm going to step into that. Now, you can go through your life trying to do the things that God wants you to do, but it's not about what he wants you to do, because all he asks is allow him to come into your life, sit down with him, and be loved by him. Remember that he said that he came to set the captives free. If you're in a place today that you know that you're a captive of fear or anxiety or some other thing, Jesus came to set you free. It's not about what you do. It's about what he's already done. I want you to think about that today as you go through your day and think about the things that perhaps are holding you down, things that you've allowed in your own head to keep you a prisoner. Remember, Jesus said, I've come to set the captives free, to declare sight to the blind. Hey, think about that today, would you? Until next time, God bless.